Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to We're All Fine. This is Holly, and of course, with me is my super sleepy, very adorable co-host, Carly. Hi, Carly.
Hi, guys.
She's like a little angel. Oh.
True. I woke up at 9 today.
At 9? No, that's very early, Carly. You poor thing.
I'm usually up way earlier. It's just today I got to sleep in. I'm like, I don't have a bra on. Like, I'm feeling cozy today.
See, audience, aren't you sad that this isn't a video podcast? Me too.
No.
Me too.
You're welcome.
Well, today we have a very special guest. And honestly, it's really your loss that it's not a video podcast because, whoa.
Wowza.
Yeah. Beauty and brains. Today we have Shelley Crespi with us today. Hi, Shelley.
Hi, girls. How are you?
I'm great. Carly is tired, but I've been up since 5:30 this morning, so my day is half over.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, my kids do like after school stuff, but it's also before school stuff now, like student council and blah, blah. And it's holidays. So for every parent, we're all parents here. We know how this is where they're like, oh, surprise, there's like a holiday party happening at 7 a.m. across town. We have to pick up.
Yeah. Also, did you bring cookies?
Oh, God. I'm going to have that tattooed on my body because I'm pretty sure that's a phrase I've heard so much this week alone.
Is it terrible that I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to make my child like as antisocial as possible in like middle and high school? Like I'm like, we still have time.
It's called time management. Carly, I think you're thinking ahead. Shelley, you are bringing a lot to the table today for our conversation, and I'm just extremely excited for this conversation. But to kind of introduce you to our audience and what you do, you sent me your bio. And I'm going to read some of this, but I'm going to need you to explain it because I'm very confused. Okay, so Shelley has worked in aerospace and space systems, i.e. space exploration, government and commercial satellite programs and launch systems for 20 years in business development at Lockheed Martin and United Launch Alliance. Her work across has been focused on new business bid and proposals and next generation advanced technologies. I have no idea what any of that means.
Does that translate?
Yeah.
Could you please? It sounds really amazing and super intimidating. I have no idea what that means.
Super fucking impressive, but
thank you. It basically is translating engineering into words that can win new business for space programs. So I've worked in space exploration, so some of the Mars missions, Jupiter missions, things like that. And then, government satellites and rocket launches. So I mainly translate the really smart things that engineers say and think into English. And we make bids and proposals for the government and hopefully win.
That's kind of amazing. I mean, that's speaking two totally different languages. Because for those of you guys who know engineers, brilliant people. Not always the most socially conversational, I guess. And mostly it's just because they're so smart. Most of the stuff just like it flies over people's heads. So the fact that you understand engineer speak and people speak, like engineers are a totally different species, which kind of.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very polite way of putting it. But we all have our lanes,
Shelley, how did you get into something like that?
I interned in college. I used to babysit for the business development director at Lockheed Martin. And when I was in college, he was like, you should probably intern. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just going to school for business. So I was like, yeah, okay. So I kind of just did it. My mom also worked at Lockheed Martin for her whole career. So I had connections there. But I ended up just getting a job offer right out of college and, just fell into it. Never left.
I'm so excited to tell my children that babysitting can be a stepping stone to a high impact career.
I babysat a lot and it didn't work out like that, but that's okay.
I love that that's how that started out. So today we're talking about specifically what it's like to be a woman working in male dominated industries. And in general, Engineering is hugely male dominated. Even in business, when you're looking at the percentage of female CEOs across the board, which is less than 5% of Fortune 500 companies. So you're looking at these two industries overwhelmingly are
Mhm.
male dominated, which is not to say that women are not complete and total rock stars in these industries. There are a lot of reasons that probably attract more men, allow more men into the systems. I'm
Mhm.
sure that there's a lot of that. So, Shelley, when you first went into this, did you kind of know what to expect as a woman going into this kind of thing?
I honestly don't think any young woman knows what to expect when it comes to, what to expect in the workforce and kind of the differences that you'll experience as a woman. You just sort of get into it and you stumble your way through it. I don't know that anyone can really prepare you for it.
What was the biggest surprise? Like, what was the thing that caught you off either off guard the most, or the thing that you were like, "Ooh, fuck, I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared."
Sitting in a room and realizing you're the only female and that that's a little intimidating, but the travel I think was kind of the most shocking thing for me because I didn't realize all the dynamics that went into traveling with all of your male coworkers. So I think that was a more surprising aspect of the job.
What kind of dynamics?
Well, I think as a female, you just think of a lot of other things that you have to plan for when you go on a business trip. So, you're trying to keep up with all your coworkers and their meetings and where they're staying, what flights they're taking, but you have to plan a little bit more. So, you kind of got to think, all right, where am I going to park my car? Because when I come back, it's going to be midnight. And I don't really want to walk by myself back to my car. So you spend a little bit more on parking maybe. The flights you choose are different. The floor that you stay on in a hotel is different. You just have to sort of plan things out a little bit more, really just for safety. And then there's the whole dynamic of, if you have a significant other at home, making it okay and comfortable for them to be traveling with other males and not have that be a threat. So it's just a lot more work than I think men have to think about for business trips.
That didn't even hit me thinking about travel, the idea of, like, all of those things that I think about when I lived in apartments and when
Mhm.
I go to a grocery store and things like that. Like, I know, I'm parking under a lamp and I'm making it so that it's a short walk if I'm at night, that kind of thing. But with travel, it just didn't even occur to me, especially if you're the only woman.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and, like, the additional expense too, like you said, because 'cause we're gonna pick a safer parking lot. We're going to pick a secured parking garage over, like, a lot down the road that's free. I never even I didn't even think about that because, like, when I think of, like, male-dominated fields, right, I'm like, "Ugh, it's a bunch of cubicles." And, like, that sleazy guy Tom that everybody deals with, and somehow he's just still fucking there, you know?
Fucking Tom. Fucking
And
Tom.
we deal with all of that, but then on top of it, like, the travel aspects or holidays or all of those things where I mean, my husband is wonderful and lovely, but the mental load during the holidays is 10 times more, right? He's just as surprised about what gifts my child opens under the tree as she is. Like, it's just two people, 2/3 of the room have no fucking clue how any of this shit got here, you know? And, like, that mental load on top of everything else that you have to worry about at work, like, we have it rough, and I think for the first time in my life, I'm comfortable saying that. For a really long time, I had a hard time saying, like, "Yeah, women have it a little bit harder."
Yeah, I think that we're programmed to sort of just take it on. And if you complain about it, you sound like you're a feminist and, there's all these negative connotations, but that is the reality. I mean, we are planning for everyone's Christmas gifts. We are the ones baking the cookies for the kids' crazy week at school. And yeah, I mean, it's the truth. So I feel like I was really uncomfortable saying that for a long time too, but now it's just glaringly obvious and it's not making me ashamed to kind of point it out anymore.
I saw this meme the other day that was like, "The most useless decoration at Christmas is mom's stocking." I said what I said.
So true.
It's true, like, you could put anything in it. You could even go through the house that morning and be like, "Oh, here's a clean fork." Like, I'd love it. I'd be like, "Oh, a dingle hopper? Nope, we're just gonna let it hang there, sad and empty. It's okay. It's okay."
I'm glad you said it because my thought process was like, don't be sad about that. Like, they'll be getting you gifts and stuff. It's not a big deal. But yeah, mine's the only empty one, and I have about 10 of them up
Yeah.
right now. So,
Oh my
And
god.
it hurts. The first year, it fucking hurt. Like, I was like, "Ugh."
Although, I feel like I need to tell Chad right now, I need a dingle hopper for Christmas. Like, you are making that happen. Oh my
Yeah,
god,
like,
my
find
Little
me the
Mermaid
nicest one.
dream. Thanks, Carly.
Yeah, you're welcome. While everyone else is opening all of the gifts that you took care of, you can just sit there and brush your hair with a fork.
Oh,
you don't look crazy at all.
no.
No, you're the one
Oh,
taking pictures, so no one will know.
Yeah, you won't be in any of the photos. So, do whatever you want.
It doesn't matter.
oh my god. Just laugh so you don't cry. All right. So Shelley, we're gonna get into, I think, the thing that a lot of women we like automatically think of. We're like, oh, woman in male dominated rooms, spaces, businesses is the sexual harassment. And I know that it doesn't matter what you look like, who you are, like it's just being a female in a male space. But you also are a very attractive person, which I can't imagine helps you. And I know that sounds terrible, but I have a lot of friends who are just, I mean, very, very pretty people. And it's frustrating for them because it's not like, oh, me, my life so tough. It's really frustrating because it's hard for people to see past face value a lot of times. The attention is so much more aggressive. Is that something that you had to deal with?
Oh, completely. I started when I was 20. So I was by far the youngest person in the room, and I was the only female in the room. And I will never forget the first boss I ever had. I had a cubicle. So, Carly, you were imagining correctly. I had my cubicle, and my computer was plugged in to the wall, and it was dying. So I was underneath my desk trying to try different outlets and get it to start. My boss walked up and he looked at me and he said, "I knew I'd get you on your knees one of these days." And I was just so
What?
flabbergasted that that came out of his mouth that my thought process was, "Man, I really hope he meant something else," you know? And so I didn't say anything. I just kind of sat there in shock. And,
Mm,
you know, the worst part about it is that it didn't really stop. And as a female that's that young starting out,
mhm.
you don't really feel comfortable saying anything because you
Yeah.
don't want to make trouble, you know? So you end up accepting behavior like that. That's like, 20 years later, you're like outraged that someone had the audacity to say that to you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that coming up with excuses to justify it
Right.
because we think, no, I mean, that's something in a movie. That's not a thing that somebody really does. Like,
Mhm.
that's like, like the villain next to the train track moment, twisting the mustache. Like, no real human is going to say that
Right.
Well,
to
but
a
yeah.
young woman.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Um,
but it's because it's a protection element because we know that if we did take it to someone and if we did say those things, it would get passed off as, "Oh, you misunderstood. You were being overtly sensitive." That was what it was. Like, you're making a big wave over something that's
right.
not real. And then you're afraid that you're gonna lose your whole job over a 2-second period that made you feel really uncomfortable that now has stuck with you for forever. But in that moment, the opportunity cost feels so weighted.
Exactly.
I think there's a number of times that women have wanted to go back and protect their younger selves, tell their younger selves, like, it's okay to
Mhm,
say something. Shelly, you and I were talking off mic a while ago about when I was 18, I worked at this diner that was kind of a popular diner in the Springs. And I had a boss who told me things like, we don't do a uniform here, but as the lone like waitress behind the counter, your uniform, quote unquote, is a V-neck shirt. I'm gonna tell you that that's what you need to work. And because again, in my head, you're like, that can't be what I think it is. So I go, why? And they go, just that needs to be a thing that you do. Don't worry, you're gonna get tipped well, but that's the requirement here.
mhm,
Okay. And then when they wanted to celebrate what a great job I was doing there by naming a new sandwich after me. It was called the Holly Chicken Breast, and that was the meal that and all our it's primarily male customers that came in, and everybody's ordering it the whole day, side chuckle, and now I look back and it's just, like, so disgusting and horrible. Like, here I was, this 18-year-old,
Mhm.
and in my head, I'm like, "Well, this is very uncomfortable," but I'm sure it's not like, I'm probably just taking it weird. Like, it's probably just a joke. Like, they're just being funny, and I don't get it.
Mhm. Why am I so sensitive?
And I don't have a sense of humor, people are gonna be uncomfortable, I'm gonna have this reputation of not being playful, and for some reason, that's more important to us at maybe a young age or maybe just when you're exposed to it the first time.
I'm sorry, but have you ever heard another man talk about their male colleague and say, I just love it. He's so playful. No, you never hear the words like, oh, so friendly, so approachable, so playful, so bubbly. But we're expected to have that shit. Like when we write a work email, we have to put in like exclamation marks and like winky faces, because otherwise we're a bitch.
Totally.
Oh, I think I'm mad today. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's always this topic, Carly.
It gets
I
me
I
going.
see flames coming out of your head, but it's so good we're talking about this.
Mhm.
So that was, like, right off the bat. Did you see that as you were there longer, Shelley, and, like, you were doing more work, did that ever kind of tame itself?
No, it doesn't stop, but you just develop a thick skin, and I guess for me, my strategy dealing with it, right or wrong, was just to focus on what my goals were and kind of let that be the noise. I kinda regret not reporting certain people for way more outrageous things than that, but, for me, I was just trying to focus on my career, which, is a tough thing to do because you are definitely discredited on the regular for simply just being a woman, I think, like, you can't possibly be smart or the smartest person in the room, and you always have to kinda, like, present yourself almost in a perfect way to be considered at the same level.
Mhm.
But you've been very successful in your job. I don't know, when I talk to other people about you, I'm like, "She's a rocket scientist." Also because I don't fully understand, like, what you do. So I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, my friend Shelley, she's a rocket scientist." But, I mean, especially to have been doing this for 20 years,
Yeah.
you have to be pretty good at what you do.
Yeah, you know what you're fucking doing, Shelly. Like, you know what you're doing.
Thanks. Sometimes you just end up being like looking around the room like, whoa, whoa, whoa. When did I end up being the subject matter expert on this topic? But yeah, I've been blessed. I've had a really, really successful career, and I think part of that is just focusing and letting some of that stuff be the noise and not letting myself get too worked up about it. But it's sad that you kind of have to do that.
Do you
Yeah.
have, like, tips and tricks when you're in the room and you want to establish that you are the authority?
My tip is don't try to establish authority. I typically go into teams who have never met me before. So I go in and I'm their manager for this proposal that they're writing. So think about having a team of people who've worked on a technology for their whole career, and you're about to put it in writing and try to get a contract from the government. I come in, I'm telling them how to write that proposal, and they're like, "Who is this chick who like doesn't know what technology we're selling? I've never seen her. She's not part of our group." And I am in charge of the next 90 days of their life. And I'm telling them they have to work 7 days a week and meet deadlines if that means they're working till midnight sometimes. So I'm not a good presence in their group. So my tip and trick for getting through that is just prove it. Don't try to establish any kind of
Mm.
leadership role. Just be very good at your job and let that speak for itself. And over about 2 weeks, it usually takes about a week or 2, you start realizing people are like, "Oh, okay, wow, she's actually catching on pretty quick. I'm going to start helping and cooperating a little bit more." And by the end of it, they're like your family. So it's an interesting dynamic, but my tip to women is definitely don't go in there and tell engineers that you're their boss.
Do you find that your language changes when you're in the work setting versus, like, social?
That's a really good question. I think for me personally, I try really hard not to because I think one of the things I like about my job is that I make people feel comfortable. And a lot of times I encourage them to talk about their families and their lives. What are they doing? Why do they have to leave early? Like, oh, have a good trip to Vegas or whatever. So I try to keep it pretty casual, but I I see it all the time, like these women who just have to hit the mark and they're a completely different human when they're in the presentation room than they are when they walk out.
See, these are good tips to be successful in your career, because like
Yeah.
Shelley,
Well,
you're
because
living the dream.
what I'm hearing is, like, be self-assured, not, like, arrogant or cocky, or
Right.
displaying arrogance or cockiness, which men get to do, but it's
Yeah.
fine. And then also, like, being authentic. And I think that's super cool. I don't know. Those are 2 good points.
Listeners, I should tell you, like, looking at this, Carly is slowly falling in love with Shelley right now. Like,
No, it's true.
just in our
Mm,
time, like,
mm.
it's the sweetest. So,
Okay.
Shelley, the other part of your
Yeah.
bio, and this is really awesome, is you said that in your personal time, your husband and you are passionate about showing the world to your 4-year-old son and expanding your culinary palate. What does that mean?
Well, we just ate our way through Southeast Asia. We planned our whole trip around what kind of food we wanted to eat, and our son is a really adventurous eater, so luckily he was along for the ride.
I'm
Oh
so
my god.
jealous of that part. I am behind you in everything, but, like, the one thing that I think is, like, actually really jealous is if it isn't a potato or a noodle, like, my kid's not fucking eating it, and it drives me insane.
Yeah.
When she was living in my belly, I was like, just don't be a picky eater," and she was like, "Alright, mom, no problem." Like, ketchup all the time. Like, it drives me insane. So, I'm super jealous of
You
the
can't
fact that
have it all with kids. You are either gonna get a good eater or I mean, my kid didn't sleep for 3 years, so
Okay, I'll stop
But
bitching.
Oh my god.
My kid was sleeping through the night the day I brought her home from the hospital. Like, she's so easy
I
sleep.
wanna love you, but that kinda makes me hate you.
See, it happened. Oh, we just got into our first fight. It's okay. We will rebuild.
But see, what I heard from this is that Shelley plans all vacations around food,
Yeah.
which, mm, like,
Mhm.
I carry that in my heart. We went and visited family out in Washington who I love my family in Washington. They are the best. And for whatever reason, it was the first time we'd really kinda gotten to know them and spend time with them, and they, like, never stopped to eat. Like, we were doing stuff, like, we're going out and doing these things and visiting these places, and, like, I kept thinking, like, when are we doing lunch? Like, we're not is nobody's even talking about it. We're not discussing it. And then so we would, like, sneak a lunch in between activities, me and Chad and the kids, and then it would be evening time and no one's talked about dinner. And I'm thinking, "Is it just me? Maybe I'm a little food obsessed, but like, we're not even talking about this?" This is the time, like, I how am I related to these people? I
Mhm.
brought it up to them a year later. I was like, "Guys, I don't know if we can come visit you again. Like, you don't eat." And they were like, "What?" So apparently, at that time, they were just so excited about stuff that they forgot to plan food, but as a
Mm.
family, all they do is eat. And I was like, "All right, we can be family
Phew.
again."
Yeah.
Okay. Close call.
How do you do that? How do you plan events, family gatherings, and not go, "I know when we're doing food here and food here. The rest
Oh,
will play
yeah.
by ear."
Oh, vacations? My dinner reservations are the first things we're doing. Like, that's how I travel. It's all around food, and then we fit excursions around it.
Right. If it interferes with the food though, then it's a no-go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
I
not
hear it.
interested.
Yeah.
So, Shelley, with as much as you travel, and I mean, like, not just in the US, but, like, internationally, what kind of differences have you seen traveling, like, as a woman in these spaces?
It's so funny that you ask me because I was pointing this out to my husband this last trip. Every single person asks him what he does for a living. They don't even assume that I work. They don't ask me. They don't make eye contact with this conversation. They exclusively want to know from my husband. And it's funny that, you're just sitting there wondering why they'd assume that you don't have any kind of career or intelligence. But it was true. Every single time, every person asked him what he did and completely bypassed me.
And then that should have been the moment you jump in and go, yeah, and I'm a rocket scientist. Just
I'm not, but
it's very hard for you to put that whole bio into a quick drop, Shelley. It's absolutely fascinating, but it's a rocket scientist.
Yeah.
That's what most of my friends just say when they don't know how to answer that
Or
question.
space engineer translator.
That is more accurate.
Eh? Okay. I
Yeah.
like that. You know, I think that's super fascinating. I've seen that happen a lot, just even in the US.
You're just there to bear the children, I'm sure.
Well, yeah. And how do you do it all? How do you do it?
That's a legitimate question, though, Shelley. Like, you have a 40-year-old right now. How does that work with what you do or, like, how you do it?
Well, my journey is a little different. So when we first moved to Steamboat Springs, I don't know if anyone's been there, but it's like a ski town. So it's a very small town. There's not a lot of industry here. And then I found out I was pregnant right when we moved here. So I was wrapping up a contract with United Launch Alliance and couldn't tell anyone I was pregnant, and then had the baby and wasn't really able to work because a lot of the work you do in satellites is classified. So you have to be physically there. So I was really blessed that after we submitted that proposal, they had some more work and asked me to do some stuff remotely from Steamboat. So that's pretty uncommon. And I think COVID might have factored into their flexibility with that. But it is impossible to have a Zoom meeting. I know you guys do this for a living, but I don't know how people have children in the room or the house with them when they're on a Zoom call. My kid came in one time and was like, I was presenting to 150 people, and he said, Mom, you need to wipe my butt on the Zoom call. So I'm just amazed at people who can work from home with their kids.
I I feel like that's just such a good setup for so many jokes, though, for, like, what you do. I mean, that's really God, that's solid. So, what about for our listeners? Like, because, I mean, we talk about engineering being super male-dominated, business being male-dominated. We I have a lot of female friends who are, like, in their 20s now and are going into all different aspects of business. What what kind of things would you say to them? General advice for all of our younger people, younger ladies.
I would just say that don't let things limit you. You can be the smartest person in the room and you don't have to tell them that you are. It'll show up in your work. And so just be confident and know that you are qualified.
Mm. Know that you are qualified. Know you're enough. I like that. I like that a lot.
So, I've been thinking, like, it's my love of the movie 9 to 5 because I
Mm.
really do you guys know that? With Dolly
It's
Parton and
I know of it.
it's
Shelley.
you've never seen it,
I
Shelley. I
don't
think we
know
have to
the last
break up. I don't know.
No, Carly. Come over,
It's
we'll watch it.
Okay. Okay.
so this is, like, a really solid 80s movie with Dolly Parton and Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin.
Oh.
The premise was these women 3 women are working in a corporate environment with, like, a super sexist, horrible boss. But it's a comedy. It's very great. But there is a moment where the 3 of them and they're talking about their fantasies of, like, what they would do if they could, right? Dolly Parton's fantasy is she's his personal secretary in the film, and he's the worst to her all the time because, it's Dolly Parton. God bless. She's got a lot that she's working with. And he's terrible to her. So she has this fantasy of flipping the narrative. So she's doing it to him all the time, like dropping pencils off her desk and making him pick it up so she can, like, talk about his rear. And it's, like, so funny.
Watching 9 to 5 since, like, I was a child, my brain really stuck on the part when they were all, like, lassoing him or, like, shooting him and, like, poisoning him in their fantasies. It wasn't, like, the reversed behavior part. 30
Okay.
years and
If it helps, flip it around in your head as to a pickup line that if you had heard it to you, wouldn't have made you feel creepy, would just have been that moment of like, "Oh, I expected better."
Oh, the pickup lines that stick out to me, though, are the ones that definitely creep you out. My personal favorite that I heard, I'm not sure you could reverse this, was, "Hey, ladies, you wanna miss your period next month?" Yeah.
Stop!
I wish I was kidding.
Oh my god. Alright. I've heard one that was like, "How do you like your eggs in the morning?
Mhm.
Fertilized?" Like, I've heard that one.
Blech! Oh, see? What kind of perv? What kind of a fucked up sorry, I feel like a cat, like, I just couldn't hold it in. Like, I've heard, like, "Do you like blueberries or waffles? So I know what to make you in the morning." And, like, to me, like, "You're gonna
Okay.
carbo load me after we had a good night?" Like, "Okay." Like,
Okay, I'm okay with
"Okay."
that.
Yeah, like
That one's not nearly as awful. When I taught theater in the school, and I taught in a black box theater, and
Mhm.
I had a male boss that was always like, "Hey, so, when can I, come in your black box?" And then the only way to deal with it is I would laugh and go, "Oh, well, you gotta buy me dinner first." And then we would, like, laugh, and then I would leave and vomit a little bit in my mouth.
So I think I'm what's known as like a brat nowadays. I'm finding my people. And I just want to give this to you guys and everyone else in the whole world. When somebody says something that makes you uncomfortable, instead of doing like our normal, like laughing, joking, anything, because they are already assume that you're less intelligent than they are if they're going to put you in those situations. So weaponize that part and just kind of cock your head like a cute little puppy and go, "What do you mean?"
Explain it.
And
That's a good
then
idea.
they'll kinda stop for a minute and maybe fluster, or they're complete pieces of shit, and they'll keep going, but eventually what will happen is if you just keep going like, "Oh, I don't think I understand. Like, go into more detail. Help me understand this." All of a sudden, they're having to explain to you what they just did and why it was wrong,
I love
and I
that.
promise they are never going to do it again.
I think that should be the tip to women who are entering the workforce. That's great advice, Carly.
That
Thanks.
is great.
Mhm. No, it's really fun. Like when a guy or a person says something like underhanded or shitty to you, just allow what they feel like is their power because you're clearly less intelligent. You're clearly less powerful. You are clearly all of these much smaller than they are. You weaponize that aspect of it and you get a complete and total power change and a complete and total power dynamic. Because then, if you do feel like after sitting on it, like you need to talk to higher ups, or if they were to go to someone because you made them uncomfortable and they're not used to that, the conversation they have is them explaining to you how what they said was not okay.
I
And you've
love
done nothing wrong.
Amazing.
Carly, I think you have a future in HR. Like, maybe that's
Ah, except here's the problem though, is if somebody came to me and was like, "Oh, yeah, I did touch her shoulders a lot, but I was just being an empowering coworker." I'd be like, "No, you're a fucking pervert. You're a fucking creep, and I hate you, and I'm gonna try to get you fired, and then I'm gonna get in trouble." And
oh, yeah,
that's
that's not very human resources
mm-mm.
of you.
Well, maybe there's like a hybrid role where you can just be like a an advisor to females.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I charge $50 an hour and just come talk to me. What we do is we start each session, we talk shit, okay? You say all the things you hate about them. Then we go into like how we can get your power back. And then the third one is you pay me. And then we're best friends.
Oh my god. This
Sign me up.
don't leave the podcast for your new job, Carly. Because honestly, that just sounds so
It's like a
perfect.
dream job, honestly.
Literally, that would be my dream. Like I wake up every day. Like, all right, Linda. What did Dave do today? Like, fuck that guy, huh? Like, yeah, I would love that. That'd be really nice.
I'd rather brainstorm instead of brainstorming like pickup lines for these men who would make them feel uncomfortable. Brainstorm how to fire them the most creatively. That sounds more fun.
Oh my god, I love
Done.
this.
All I can think in these moments is, like, do it do the firing within, like, the entire department, and then it's like, "Everybody who still works here, raise your hand." "Oh, Phil, not so fast." Like, and ju
Mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. Ooh, you're very, very presumptuous, aren't you?
like,
Aren't you, Phil?
and then everybody just stand there, and it's, like, quiet and awkward until you finally go, "Ooh, this is uncomfortable."
Oh my god, you could do it like The Bachelor, but it's like they're a stapler, where you're just like, "All right, Jeff, you've done a really good job this quarter. Carol, you're incredible. All right, if you don't have your stapler, I'm sorry, but you gotta go home."
Oh man, I would just love to have like a panel of women and have a room full of their coworkers and say like, if you don't get, like a rose or something, it means that you didn't sexually harass anyone. And then just see out of that panel of women how many of those men had personally affected these women. It would be amazing to see the overlap and kind of like how many of them did it and then just fire them on the spot.
We do it like Mean Girls. We put them all in an auditorium. Who here has been personally victimized
Yes.
by, like,
George. Just George.
Reginald George? Yeah. Like, who is
George.
it? And we all raise our hands.
Yeah.
I don't even have to go here. I'll put my hand up. Like, yeah, fuck that guy. Fuck Keith.
Wow.
Like, that guy sucks.
Wow, you guys, this
I
is
know.
epic.
It's dark. It's dark.
Dark. Shelley, I feel like you are such an inspiration
I
for
agree.
a lot of women because you not only are working in a tough industry as a woman, but you've done so successfully and you've found ways, not easily, but you've found ways to balance the things that you also want to do in your life, which I think is really pretty phenomenal. And
Thanks.
while Carly and I are both over here being very bitter and cranky, you just sound unbelievably reasonable and so mature. And I'm just
The last segment really shows my maturity.
no, but I mean overall, I think it really speaks volumes about you for sure. And I
Oh,
think that
thank you.
it says something too. Like, how long have you been married, Shelley?
4 years.
4 years with a beautiful son. And you and your hubby, both very successful people, lovely people traveling together. And I think it says something to know that for strong, successful women, you can find other strong, successful men who will love and appreciate and support that. Like,
Mhm.
it does exist.
It's true. It's always a fear that you're going to have a husband or partner who is threatened by your career. But it's really important to find someone who genuinely supports you. And, you guys are saying I'm positive, but the reality is that there's a lot of times where I'm coming home and I'm like, I cannot believe how outrageous this person is or this experience I had a lot of times because you're a woman. And so, yeah, I do sugarcoat things kind of a lot because I think there is always a path to thinking of it differently, but it is not easy. I mean, it's happening constantly. You're constantly discredited. And it's not always just with your coworkers, it's just with people who have a hard time with the fact that you have any kind of intelligence or a career. I recently had someone tell me that I like to speak in a way that makes people think I'm smart. And I said, well, can you assume that maybe I just am smart and that's how I speak? And they said, no, you want people to know you're smart. And I thought that's just something you would never say to another man. I can't picture that coming out of this person's mouth to another male.
'Cause it wouldn't. 'Cause it wouldn't, and the fact that they let it fly out of their fly trap is just absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, and it happens a lot. So you do have to prove yourself over and over and over. And it is exhausting. But having a partner that does support you is, I don't know how you do it if you don't have that partnership.
I don't either. I don't either.
Wow.
Well, this is kind of a good segue. I was gonna do this earlier, but then, like, we were so much fun to talk to. But there is a new trend going on social media right now that I am obsessed with, and it's hashtag women in men fields or, like, women in male-dominated fields. And what it is it's like flipping around shitty little microaggressions that we deal with all the time that you wouldn't even think of. And so I screenshotted some of my favorite and I want to read it to you. So this one says, if I hadn't injured my knee, I'd be a Victoria's Secret model by now. Hashtag women in male dominated fields. Because like how many douchebags at a bar was like, yeah, I tore my ACL or I would be in the NFL. Like, no, you fucking wouldn't. So that one was a fun one.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah. When he says he wants to be a doctor, and I say, wow, who will take care of your kids? Won't you feel guilty someone else is raising them? Women in male fields.
Oh.
When he sends multiple texts in a row asking logistical questions, but I only replied to the last and least important one. Women in men's fields.
I'm definitely doing that from now on.
Oh my God, that's going to be my favorite.
I tell you what, search hashtag women in men's fields or male dominated fields. It is beautiful. What another funny one was like having $7 in my bank account and accusing him of being a gold digger. Hashtag women in male dominated fields. So good.
Right. Well, this is going to, you've now told me what I'm doing for the rest of my morning. Thanks, Carly. Shelley, thank you so much for coming on today. Oh my gosh, this was so fun. You're amazing. And I feel like I've already learned a lot. I want to go and take over the world now after this morning. I mean, when I'm done on social media looking up that hashtag. Like,
you have a few things on the to-do list first.
You're a busy woman.
Yeah, that and also getting Christmas cookies and finishing Christmas shopping. And I'm sorry, I'm giving myself palpitations. Anyway, listeners, this is just another reminder. First of all, you're not by yourself. So I promise you, so many of you listeners, if you haven't experienced this, I promise you somebody around you has. And guess what? You're not alone. All this crazy happens around us all the time. And no matter what, we're all fine. Like, we're all going to get through it. Because you know what? We got each other. We got all the weirdness around us. We got all the people to love and support us. So yay. If you guys haven't, please find us on all the social medias. We're on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook. We have some fun questions going out on our Facebook page. We would love for you guys to check that out because we need your help with a couple things that we are looking for. Again, Shelley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, ladies. It was so fun.
All right, listeners, we love you.
Bye.